Absolute Cinema.
All right, welcome to the 2026 quarter one movie bracket. Uh, Bringing this in, don't really know what I'm doing, but I said in the podcast from God knows probably a month ago that I wanted to do a 2025 movie bracket. I didn't end up doing it, and then I didn't end up doing anything for the first 2 months of 2026. I want to do a I don't know what's the sixth version of a quarterly sextile or something like that. I don't freaking know. Hextile maybe. I don't know. Once every 2 months for 6 times per year, whatever that is. Is that bi-monthly? That's probably bi-monthly. That works a lot better. But who cares? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter because we're not doing that. We're not doing whatever I said in the podcast. We're doing this. We're hitting this. We're hitting the 2026. Okay, I'm in F11 mode, so don't freak out here. 2026 quarter one movie bracket. Starting, of course, with Dodgeball, which I started the year with, which is pretty freaking funny. And all the way down here, ending with Twilight, the fifth movie that I ended the quarter with. And a lot of people will probably say, Michael, if it's just in order, you're going to rig the bracket. All right, we'll go back to the edit. I found just literally the first site that could make this work with it, like actually allowing me to go through without putting my credit card in. So let's just hope that this all works out fine. I'm just gonna rip it live. If I end up having to delete this recording, I end up having to delete it. But if you see it right now, you know that it worked out good, which is great. So we'll hit the shuffle. I don't know, one, two, three times. Hit a confirm, and we'll rip it. We'll rip it. How's everyone doing? Hope you enjoy this, and we'll just get straight into it. We're gonna have a couple buy rounds for some of these because I think it came out to 58 movies or something like that. Actually, I guess we could see. Yeah, we've got 29. Round one, the 29th matchup. Two per matchup, so we'll have 58 here. So it's not going to come out to a nice 64 bracket. So I think a couple on these top ones are going to have a weird couple buy rounds, but everything else should be all right. The Irishman, a Martin Scorsese movie, probably one of his more recent giant movies. Of course, a lot of people know about it. It was a big release to Netflix there. And honestly, like he just gets his usual cast for the most part. I'm trying to scroll through my letterbox to see how I ended up feeling about it. Maybe I should just Control F. And I'm on the I'm messing up on my second monitor that you can't even see here. Trying to find some more information from it if I can here. 2019 from Martin Scorsese, of course. You had your classics of De Niro, Pacino, Pesci, Harvey Keitel, even some other names like you got a little bit of Jesse Plemons. Again, just a um, sort of mafia style movie, which Scorsese really enjoys to do, believe it or not. And Nomadland, kind of almost the exact opposite on my sort of preference. This was a 2020 movie by Chloe Zhao, who also did Eternals from 2021 and the newer Hamnet from 2025. Personally, was not as much of a fan of Nomadland. Some people will call it Oscar bait. I just found it rather boring with Frances McDormand. It's kind of she just goes through living as a nomad and nothing really happens the entire time. That's my opinion, of course. This entire thing is going to be filled with just a bunch of my opinions that you may or may not agree with. But undoubtedly, I gotta give this one to The Irishman. I mean, that's just gotta go through to. He's even gonna get a buy around in round two, so that's gonna be gross. We're doing single elimination here. I think this did LV Up, whatever this website is called, lvup.gg. I'm not endorsed by them in any way, but I do think it provides an option for double elim, and I did not end up going for it. It should be down here at the bottom. No, I did not end up going for it. But we'll see if maybe second time I do this, if I do this for quarter two, whether or not the double elim might be worth it or not. But we'll see. Um, Second matchup, we're gonna have to end up chewing through a couple of these, of course, once we get to sort of the second round, and once I explain a lot of what these movies are and what I feel about them. I think it'll be a little bit easier to figure out which one I go through. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, obviously, like just like incredibly influential on the. I'm trying to find it through here. 1974, incredibly influential on the horror franchise. I mean, kind of inundated that last girl sort of concept through it. And like just I'm trying to find Oh Brother Where Art Thou at the same time here, and really just pushed the genre quite a ways. Definitely creepy, definitely good screams, interesting characters. It's kind of a little shoddy in terms of its quality, like its visual quality, and some of its shots are okay, but I think for the most part, it's pretty interesting. And then you had Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, a 2004 film by, was it the Coen brothers? Yes, the Coen brothers. Directed by Joel Coen, but of course produced and written by Ethan and Joel Coen. Starring George Clooney, John Turturro, John Goodman, Tim Blake Nelson, who I don't recognize, but I assume he's the other person in the trio. Um, and it's sort of that retelling of the Odyssey style story. And this one was not as much for me. I think it's got an interesting concept, and I think it's got fun points, but I think it's not the comedy style that I personally enjoyed from the Coen brothers. I think I'm much more of a fan of, something along the lines of No Country for Old Men or even Fargo. Definitely The Big Lebowski, which I think The Big Lebowski might be in here somewhere, but no. I watched it last year. So none of those will hit the list, but all those are pretty good. Um, so it's a little tight, but I think I still would pick the Texas Chainsaw Massacre over Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Then you have The Conversation versus Every Living, Breathing Moment. The Conversation is a full feature film with, oh man, I'm blanking on his name because this is gonna take way too long. Gene Hackman is a surveillance expert. And he has a crisis of conscience when he suspects that the couple he's spying on will be murdered. You get a couple other almost kind of familiar faces. You get a bit of Harrison Ford here and there. It's a Francis Ford Coppola one, surprisingly. And then you have Every Living, Breathing Moment, which is a short film that I actually watched because it had a good, really good soundtrack. It had a couple good pieces of cutting and editing and framing. Had a lot of warmth to some of their frames, which was really nice. And surprisingly, I think I actually enjoyed. If I'm taking as smiles per hour, enjoyment per hour, I think I would take that Every Living, Breathing Moment over The Conversation in this case. Conversation is still generally, I think, a pretty good movie. I think it's a little slow at times, and I don't think it's exactly for me. It's kind of gives me that feeling where not much pulls me through. I think I said in my original review, this couldn't pull me in properly. It's a little too vague throughout, with a lot of scenes feeling like they don't convey much. The mystery unfolding in Hackman's performance is good, but not much else. Yeah, I don't remember if there's any good music. Maybe it's one that I got to rewatch if I want to see if there's good music. But if I gotta, if you're holding a gun to my head and I gotta pick one of these, I think I would take Every Living, Breathing Moment over The Conversation there. Yeah, Begonia, a 20 something. Is there a way I can fit more than 50 films on my Actually, I can have two. I can have two freaking things open. That's what I can do. I can have two tabs open on my second monitor for Begonia and Snowpiercer. Neither of which are on this. All right, great. Begonia and Snowpiercer. So you've got Begonia, which is a Yorgos Lanthimos film, probably the first one that I actually enjoyed and thought was interesting. And then you have Snowpiercer, a Bong Joon-ho film, which for anyone who doesn't recognize those names, Yorgos Lanthimos, of course, did Poor Things, or The Lobster, which you might know. And Bong Joon-ho did the very famous 2019 Parasite. But we're not talking about those two films. We're talking, of course, about the Begonia and Snowpiercer. Begonia, I think, was pretty interesting. I think all of the performances by, your main group of people of Emma Stone, Jesse Plemons, Aidan Delbus, and Stavros, all I think did quite good. And even similarly in Snowpiercer, I enjoyed Chris Evans, Tilda Swinton, Octavia Spencer. These are some of the Ed Harris, even John Hurt. Probably recognize Song Kang Ho as part of that. He of course plays the sort of guy who's a couple. I think he's like the key maker or whatever. You'll see it if you end up watching it. I think both of these are kind of heavy heaters. It's kind of sucks that we're gonna see one of these disappear in the first round here. I think a lot of these, both of these could make good numbers in the double elim and in the losers bracket. But if I really had to choose, I think I could be more willing to rewatch Snowpiercer, and I enjoy the concepts within their story, and it's not as this like weird abstractiness or sci-fi components that come with Begonia by the time you get through parts of the stories. Although this one is a hard one to pick through, but I think I would still pick Snowpiercer over it. So it's sad to see Begonia go, but you got to pick one here, right? Then you have The Platform and Asteroid City. Trying to pick these up. You got The Platform, which was a 2019, I believe, Spanish film. And then you have Asteroid City, a 2023 Wes Anderson, of course, English film. Platform, definitely an interesting concept with a platform of food moving down in a vertical facility, which is essentially a prison, where the residents above eat heartily, leaving those below starving and desperate, and a rebellion is imminent. Whereas Asteroid City it's a Wes Anderson's film. In an American desert town circa 1955, the itinerary of a junior stargazer / space cadet convention is spectacularly disrupted by world-changing events. I think for a lot of Wes Anderson films, I think I'm very picky on what I like from him, in the sense that the ones that I really enjoy, and the rest are just sort of Royal Tenenbaums I thought was all right. I think it had a huge cast that all did pretty good performances, but it's not much really happens besides a couple inter-character interactions, but maybe I glossed over too much of it. And Asteroid City kind of has that a bit too. I love Fantastic Mr. Fox, and Grand Budapest Hotel is also very fun. But I think people give him a lot more flowers than he should in some cases, but he is still a very, very talented director and artist, of course. But Asteroid City, I think the story was not my cup of tea. I think it was pretty damn Wes Anderson-y. And The Platform kind of had this unique idea, some interesting filmography. I don't know if I recognize anything else from the director. Not really. He made a sequel, and not much else that I've even heard of. Honestly, nothing else that I've heard of. But an interesting concept. So while the Wes Anderson heads will fucking pipe bomb my fucking mailbox, I will end up choosing The Platform in that case. Then you have Blue Velvet, and this is Spinal Tap, and this is where I say the different fans of David Lynch who really enjoy Blue Velvet and David Lynch's films will kill me here because I was not a very big fan of Blue Velvet. Um, and I think it creeped me out more than anything else, and I didn't exactly see maybe the vision of what David Lynch was going for. I think it had some pretty interesting cinematography, um, but it's just not my cup of tea. I think is what I said. I said I like the themes and approach he's going for here, but it's just turned up to an 11, and I wasn't exactly looking for unique filmmaking mixed with a mystery for this film. Um, yeah, nothing. I haven't seen anything like it, which I will give it its flowers for. But I don't think I'll ever want to rewatch Blue Velvet. It was just creepy, and I didn't exactly see the point. And it's not one that I'm like, oh, let me go rewatch Over the Hedge. That's a fun kids film. This didn't feel fun. I was just like, what's happening? Which maybe is the point of it. And then like, why do we make this? Why should I rewatch this? What's really the point in this film? Um, it's just not something that I'm really interested in rewatching, and trying to get into this story. I like the whole like trying to create this really disturbing character who's also the bad guy in Speed and everything, but I really don't think Blue Velvet was my cup of tea. David Lynch films, at least for what I've seen, I'm currently over to with Blue Velvet and Eraserhead. But maybe if I look into Mulholland Drive, which is probably one of his biggest ones, and is one of his least Lynchian films, maybe it'll be something I'll be more in the mood for and enjoy more. But compared to This Is Spinal Tap, which is a mockumentary, which was turned, no offense, or no pun intended, up to an 11 when it ended up being turned into more of an actual thing and an actual band and everything, and what it ended up doing for a lot of the mockumentary filmmaking concepts. I think it was really interesting. Had some great lines, some points that like you just giggle your head off at, but probably nothing that I'll end up rewatching. But overall, I would say that I enjoyed more enjoyment per minute compared to Blue Velvet. So I think I gotta take This Is Spinal Tap. And then we have Coughing Baby versus Hydrogen Bomb of Once Upon a Time in America versus Project Hail Mary. Project Hail Mary being the newest, probably the newest film on this list. It's being a 2026 release. And Once Upon a Time in America being quite an old one in comparison with the 1984 verse by Sergio Leone. I think is how you pronounce it. Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, surprising and pretty funny history for their directing history with the Jump Street movies and the Lego movie, and even Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which is pretty funny. I believe they're just a duo that, like, I mean, what a crazy run that those guys have had so far, and hopefully keep going. I mean, all of those are kind of blown out of the water for in terms of like, just enjoyed by almost everyone. Like, you can say that the Lego movie's a kids movie, but it's a pretty damn good kids movie, all things considered. And it's just turned up to an 11. And the Jump Street movies really recognizable, really influential. And Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, just like a classic kids movie that I think everyone's heard of and everyone knows the concept, and really interesting, unique concept too, with like food falling from the sky and everything. Really interesting. But we're not talking about those again. Project Hail Mary, 2026 movie. I mean, I wrote like a freaking essay in my review here. And Once Upon a Time in America being a De Niro movie from the 80s, and by Sergio Leone, who you might recognize as doing the Dollars trilogy, or the Man with No Name trilogy of Fistful of Dollars, For a Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. He also did Once Upon a Time in the West, which I haven't seen. But again, we're not talking about those. We're talking about, Once Upon a Time in America. Once Upon a Time in America, former Prohibition era Jewish gangster returns to the Lower East Side of Manhattan over 30 years later, where he once again must confront the ghosts and regrets of his old life. I think I'll just read out my review, and one of the recent reviews I'll read out Porter 1221, who gave it 1 star today, who said nobody trying to watch this long ass movie. Honestly, I might agree with you, Porter 1221. I mean, he's got Good Will Hunting, The Departed, and The Dark Knight and Whiplash in his favorite films. I mean, this guy's just based all the way through, right? Right. Not to mention his diary has that, and Primal Fear from March. So just a hilarious profile, all things considered. That this is the second thing he's logged this year. Assuming Porter's a guy. I mean, based on that fucking list, how could you not be a guy? And that, this is one of the ones that he logs, and it's just a pretty horrendous movie. I gave it 3 stars and wrote Jesus Christ long, Dear God long, pretty poor performances, a jumping around script, and fitting music. That's about as much as I could say without going too much into it. The women are written horribly within this movie. It's pretty bad overall. So that's The Coughing Baby, and then you have The Hydrogen Bomb of Project Hail Mary, a Ryan Gosling 2026 movie. Very fun. I'll just leave it here so I don't spoil anything for anyone trying to go through any of these movies. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. I think anybody can enjoy this film. I mean, it's the easiest move forward from this list that I've seen so far. So that's fine. Oh my god, then, this is where they'll say that I really rigged the bracket, is that we're having the original Twilight versus New Moon, which I believe is the second. I don't know. I watched all of them in March, so we'll see. You have Twilight, and you have Twilight New Moon. Yes, so you have 1 and 2 here. I think I wrote pretty big reviews for both of these. They ended up both coming out to 3 stars by the time I did them, which, if you haven't seen the Twilight Letterboxd ratings sort of bell curve or bar graph that they give it for 1 through 5 stars, it's hilarious to look at them, of people who are like, this is a 5, this is a 3, this is a 4, this is a 2. Like, they're all, it's not skewed to one direction or another. It's just like, it's all over the fucking place. I think if I had to pick, New Moon it builds upon the first one, but it's got some pretty horrid CGI. Everything is really trying to do a lot of groundwork for like the third, fourth, and fifth films. Some of the bits and some of the shit that they put in this is downright hilarious. It is the first movie where Taylor Lautner's hot, and they really show that. But I think if I had to pick out between each one of which one has more of an impact, and I would probably be more likely to rewatch and more likely to reference or even talk about. I feel like I would still go with Twilight, the original, versus the second one, Saga New Moon, which is pretty funny, if I gotta say, of these two getting put together here. All right, I had to take a sip of water there. All right. Then you got Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest, which I believe is the second one. That looks right. Versus The Holdovers, which was the fourth one that I've watched this year. The Holdovers being the 2023 Alexander Payne, who you might know for Downsizing. That's pretty funny. and then Gore Verbinski, who did the first three Pirates of the Caribbean, and Rango. Really weird. Second Pirates of the Caribbean, I think I said was mainly piggybacking off the original. It's a Pirates of the Caribbean movie. It's all right. You still have the main cast, of course. You know, they haven't all disappeared by the end of get to the end of the series, but I don't think it's as influential as we'll come down here to the Curse of the Black Pearl. And the Holdover is actually a really interesting movie. A lot of great characters and dialogue, and good performances from your big three there: Paul Giamatti, Dominic Sessa, and Devine, Joy Randolph. Randolph. I don't know exactly how to pronounce her name, but she's also fantastic. I think she ended up winning the supporting actress Oscar for this in the 2023 Oscars, or the Oscars for the 2023 year. So I don't think this is as Coughing Baby and Hydrogen Bomb as our round 7 here, or round 1, number 7 here, but I think this is pretty cut and dry of picking out the holdovers here, of course. And then you have Avatar Fire and Ash, Jesus Christ, versus do I even have this here? I don't have it ready. Versus the 5th Twilight movie. Good God. Avatar Fire and Ash is a crazy big spectacle with some hilarious scenes. For anybody who's seen it, of course, you know, you have like the burger scene, or the blood on the hands, and the water scene, which is just ridiculous, or the ghillie suit. Like, all of that is just, it's a fucking hilarious movie. God, is it long. It's, what even is this? It's 198 minutes. I mean, it's a James Cameron movie, so it just doesn't fucking stop. And then you have the final Twilight movie, with just CGI baby and I'm gonna spoil it here, a retconned ending, and just some lingered shots and not enough Charlie. Just ridiculous. I think these are gonna get blown up pretty quick, but if I have to end up picking, I gotta go the third Avatar movie, even though I don't love it. Yeah, the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie versus Taken. I mean, this is pretty cut and dry. Taken is a fucking mess of a movie, and Pirates of the Caribbean is pretty solid overall. I mean, just probably one of the most influential early 2000s soundtracks. Okay cinematography, simple script, easy to understand story, huge cast when you actually look at it. I mean, you got Johnny Depp, Jeffrey Rush, Orlando Bloom, Keira Knightley, Jack Davenport, Jonathan Pryce, probably a couple other faces I'll recognize in here, but don't recognize the names. Supposedly Zoe Saldana's somewhere in there. All of those just, you know, really good performances. Just puts together a really nice 2000s kids pirate movie that I think almost anyone can enjoy. So I think I ended up giving it a 3.5. And then you have Taken, a movie where Liam Neeson's trying to find his daughter after she's been kidnapped and sold into like human trafficking. And it's just a fucking mess. I think I said fine cast, okay music, acceptable action, and super easy cliche plot, and god awful editing. I think I said I had never been more dizzy in an action movie. A single chase sequence lasting less than a minute, just upwards of 100 plus cuts. And I would have loved to see a different edit within scenes. I think a lot of these chase scenes and action scenes could have worked good with long takes, but some of the editing in this should have been changed by the time it got to the final cut, but maybe that was the only way that the cut actually worked. So, going to be an easy Curse of the Black Pearl here, to move it forward. And you have Mission Impossible, the original Mission Impossible versus Black Hawk Down. Okay, an interesting 1v1 here. Mission Impossible, a little bit of a cheesy kind of campy movie, piggybacking off of the series from the 80s. TV series that ran from the 60s. Fuck me. 1966 through 1973. Okay, never mind. I was way off. Way off. We get the concepts of the masks and everything. With some, I think it had some few split diopter shots that were actually pretty interesting. I'm surprised I gave it this high out of 4, but I guess it was really influential. Overall. And then you have, who directed Mission Paul? Brian De Palma, who did Scarface, which is pretty funny. I got Blowout on my watch list, so I'll eventually get to that. And then you have Black Hawk Down, a Ridley Scott movie, who you might recognize from Alien, Gladiator, Blade Runner, Martian, American Gangster, which we'll end up seeing later on here. Even Kingdom of Heaven, which is all pretty funny. But it's a Ridley Scott war movie. It's got giant cast, slow motion shots, and just way too much fucking contrast. That like it's just a bit of a mess. And the Mission Impossible, which I think is just kind of solid all the way through. I don't think I'll rewatch it, and it's I think a little too cheesy and campy for me. But I think I would definitely take Mission Impossible over the Black Hawk Down. And then you have Room and Adaptation. A lot of these, surprisingly, are keeping their themes together, or at least in terms of like I'm looking at 2 dramas here, or 2 action movies, or whatever else, which people are just going to say I rigged the fuck out of this bracket. But you saw me triple shuffle, so you cannot get angry at me. So you have Adaptation, which was directed by Adam Spiegel, professionally is Spike Jonze, who also did Her, the Joaquin Phoenix 2013 movie. And then you also have Room. I don't recognize the rest of Lenny Abrahamson's movies, but we're talking about Adaptation 2002 and Room 2015. Adaptation, Charlie Kaufman is a confused LA screenwriter, overwhelmed by feelings of inadequacy, sexual frustration, self-loathing, and by the screenwriting ambitions of his freeloading twin brother Donald. Was struggling to adapt the book. His life spins from pathetic to bizarre. And it just becomes this overly meta film that leans into its meta parts pretty nicely. I think Nicolas Cage is pretty good, and the rest of the cast pick up any slack, and it's solid overall. I think it's a really interesting movie. It's got interesting concept, and it did that sort of really early 2000 meta script quite well. So Adaptation, kind of a heavy hitter going into this, and then up against honestly kind of a nice one for Room. I said just a nice simple review, pretty solid overall. Cast performances are solid, and the story's easy to grasp. As Brie Larson is held captive for 7 years in an enclosed space, that's colloquially within the film known as Room. A woman and her young son finally gain their freedom, allowing the boy to experience the outside world for the first time. So the film is, of course, about how they escape and how they get through that sort of life moving forward. Pretty good overall. I think Brie Larson gives a lot to it, and the child actor is also pretty good, and they throw in William H. Macy in there for what feels like almost no reason. I don't know why they got him, but pretty good. I think if I had to pick one of wanting to rewatch it, I would probably go for adaptation. I feel like this is more of an interesting film. I think Room is still pretty good, but I don't think I would ever want to come back to Room. Um, I think, everyone involved deserves their flowers, but I think adaptation just barely slips by it for me, um, in terms of like a concept and the execution overall. And I mean, you even get a bit of Nicolas Cage and Meryl Streep, even Tilda Swinton, um, tied in there. So I think it's overall pretty good. So I'll stick with adaptation. Then you have Rocky and Long Walk. Okay. Rocky, of course, the 1976 classic, and Long Walk, um, a 2025 film, based on the Stephen King book. Um, 1976, Rocky, of course, based on Rocky Balboa, Philadelphia fighter, who ends up trying to fight, the best fighter in America. And then The Long Walk, about in a dystopian 1970s America, 50 teenage boys take part in a deadly annual walking contest forced to maintain a minimum pace, 3 miles per hour, or be executed until only one survivor remains. Um, and sort of like a completely new cast of, your main actors, um, and your elites, and Rocky, of course, almost kind of having the exact same thing. I mean, I think Stallone was probably a little, was pretty new to being an actor at this point, and of course had pretty strong influence on Rocky, um, being the writer and writing all of this, which is pretty funny. Um, but I'll read my review here. I understand it's a classic, a lot tougher than I thought it would be. The story is mainly a nothing burger. Almost none of it actually contributes to any character growth or lesson of the story. It's just a ham-fisted underdog story with some basic subplot concepts sprinkled in here and there. I thought that would Rocky talking on and on would result in something in the third act, but no, it's just the pacing of the dialogue. Really odd. The big theme is interesting, at least, and it's been copied a million times, of course. A lot of people will say that, oh, this is just a Rocky movie. Um, and then I think I said for The Long Walk, interesting concept with pretty good execution. Unfortunately, you can't get much more than that. Probably not a coughing baby, maybe a coughing adult versus coughing adult. I don't think I really want to rewatch either of these. I do think probably Long Walk might lean a bit more for me than Rocky if I really had to put one up against the other, which I guess I am right now. Um, so I'll rip Long Walk, and we'll just tear off the band-aid and keep going. And you have Close Encounters of the Third Kind versus Ip Man. Ip Man being a 2008, I don't even know what you would exactly call that. Like a kung fu movie, like action kung fu movie. Um, I guess definitely a bit of drama. And then you have Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the 70s Spielberg movie where UFOs come down to Earth. You get Richard Dreyfuss, who you might know as, what was his name? Hooper, or the scientist sort of guy in Jaws. I think he was really good in Jaws. I think he was pretty good here in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Um, and then you have Ip Man, 2008 kung fu movie about the first martial arts master to teach the Chinese martial arts of Wing Chun, and it focuses upon the actual concepts of um, what is his name, Yip Man, even Donnie Yen. I mean, it's one of the more influential Hong Kong actors and martial artists. It's pretty interesting that he was a guy who was trained by Bruce Lee. Donnie Yen was trained by Bruce Lee, at least if I've got my story right. And Bruce Lee was trained by Yip Man, the guy that Donnie Yen is portraying. So he's almost portraying like his godfather, his like grandfather in terms of the training levels. So really interesting concept in history there, and really nice action and everything. I think it's a pretty good, nice runtime. It doesn't drag on for too long. Story is simple but interesting. The action is quite good. Quite good. Might need to rewatch to see if there was any interesting music, and it kind of slipped by me here. So it might be a rewatch at some point. It's pretty quick, I think, as far as like 106 minutes. Like they don't stick around and push it over 2 hours, which is quite nice. And then you have almost the opposite of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where it kind of drags on for a bit too long. A very, very odd Spielberg movie. Dreyfuss is pretty good, but not many other performances stand out. Great music, pretty good practical effects that look eerie. Nice cinematography, especially with the split diopter shots, and a batshit confusing all over the place story that felt more like a dream than a movie, which is maybe what he was going for. But I just have no reason to rewatch Close Encounters of the Third Kind unless somebody really, really wanted to watch it with me. But I think Ip Man, I could rewatch and I could enjoy and rewatch a lot of the action scenes and everything that it provides. So I think this one's a cut and dry case of Ip Man. And then you have two just crazy, crazy entries here of Spaceballs, the 1987 Star Wars spoof. And you have, what's that? The third Twilight movie, Twilight Eclipse, yeah, which just I don't even remember what they did in this. Oh right, they have to tie up everything that's happened with killing one of the previous guys and their lover coming to then get revenge and sort of lean more into the will they won't they of Team Edward versus Team Jacob, but just it just feels like it accomplishes not much for me. And you still have two movies after that, and then you have Spaceballs, which is just as tongue-in-cheek as they can get for a Star Wars parody, with just a lot of big names and goofy performances. I think, funnily enough, if I really really have to pick, I think I unfortunately would rewatch the third Twilight movie, but I think Spaceballs is a better movie overall, which is pretty funny. Maybe just because Twilight is much more laughable and a little bit more palatable for me than Spaceballs. I don't think Spaceballs is exactly my cup of tea. I think a lot of Spaceballs' humor are like perfect for YouTube shorts where you're like, ha ha ha, that's making fun of something, or it's a quick joke. But I think I do unfortunately have to pick Spaceballs. I mean, there's no way this is gonna make it past the second round, but that's a-okay for me, that it can make it into the second round. Speaking of rounds, we've got another round, or also referred to as Druk, I believe, in Danish, from 2020, and Final Destination, which is a frickin' just... it's on the other page. Final Destination. I watched this in January. God, it feels like I watched this relatively recently. A 2000 horror comedy, honestly. After a teenager has a terrifying vision of him and his friends dying in a plane crash, he prevents the accident to have death hunt them down one by one. I said it was goofy and fun to see the setups, but it's just a stupid film all the way through. I mean, it's pure horror slop. If I really have to give my opinion, um, versus another round which features four stagnated high school teachers who decide to test out a theory that maintaining a constant level of intoxication will improve their overall lives, with, of course, the hydrogen bomb of Mads Mikkelsen, one of the, you know, honestly, just a fantastic actor. You know, you could have a shit film. You're like, thank God, at least we get Mads Mikkelsen. At least that's my opinion. You know, with him in this or Casino Royale or Rogue One or Doctor Strange. So obviously, Mads Mikkelsen's pretty damn good here. Um, my performance or my review, sorry, solid concepts, acceptable filmmaking, fun music, laughable moments. Mikkelsen is quite good and fits well with the rest. It makes it be curious about his other Danish filmography. Like, he might have other Danish films that he does that's pretty good, but another round. I mean, this is cut and dry through here. So then you have Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I had seen before, and I think I ended up putting back in here because I hadn't seen it in forever, and I didn't exactly count it as a rewatch. Like, I hadn't seen that film since I was maybe 7 or 8 years old, and it's a banger. Let me see, and then you have Good Time. Oh, I forgot all about that. I forgot all about Good Time, which is pretty funny. I didn't even recognize its name up against it. So you have Good Time, which is a Safdie brothers film with Robert Pattinson, and Raiders of the Lost Ark, a Harrison Ford first Indiana Jones movie from 1981 by Spielberg. I think, unfortunately, even though Good Time, I'll give Good Time, you know, its ability to try and punch out first. After a botched bank robbery, Lance's younger brother in prison, Connie Nikaz, played by Robert Pattinson, embarks on a twisted odyssey through New York City's underworld to get his brother Nick out of jail. I think I said I was starting to develop the Safdie itch. The plot is okay, but very believable. Pattinson and the Safdies work well together, and the surreal synth music actually fit quite nicely with everything he's going through. I think it's actually a pretty good Safdie brothers film. Probably won't come back to this, but it's going up against Spielberg classic. I said absolute banger. Spielberg kills in his blocking and cinematography is solid. The story is fun and easy and has good setups and payoffs. And it's pretty quick. Comes in just under 2 hours, especially for an Indiana Jones movie. You know, you have this kind of convoluted thing where he's got to go through a lot of steps in order to get the final result. So just, I mean, it's just fun overall. Like, I mean, that's it sucks to see Good Times go, but I would give it to Raiders here, of course. Then you have Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, and 28 years later, The Bone Temple. The Bone Temple. Bone Temple was supposedly enjoyed a lot more than just 28 years later. I don't know how. I think it was. I think it felt worse in comparison to 28 years later. So I'll talk about that first. Music was fitting or okay with best. The A story felt like it was a Negan-esque cult doing cult shit, and I was kind of tired of it by the end. And you know, anyone who like would recognize some of that Jesus stuff would see that you're like, all right, that's just fucking goofy. And I said the B story with the Doctor and Samson felt really interesting and really enjoyed Ray Fiennes. The cinematography feels horribly bland. and a lot of points we could have had extended long shots. Um, I was kind of just disappointed with their their sort of structure here. So um, and even that post credits style scene with the music kicking in, at least gave me some hope. But it feels like, at least for me, with the 28 whatever later, that I'm enjoying a lot more of the odd ones than the even ones within the series. Um, so Bone Temple, not exactly for me. Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, which is the third Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Captain Jack Sparrow is trapped in Davy Jones's locker when his pirate brethren begin a desperate quest to locate and rescue him. Follow their wild seafaring adventures from exotic Singapore to World's End and beyond. Um, I give it a really boring review of similar to the second, A Big Spectacle, but not much else. This was made to finish off the trilogy, and they should have ended here. They should not have made 4 or 5. It's pretty ridiculous that they made it this far. Um, so, I mean, these are both not anything crazy, but if I had to rewatch one of them, I think I would actually go for the third Pirates of the Caribbean. I think the Bone Temple, just, I don't think I can take that A plot again. It just kind of bores me. But at least with Pirates of the Caribbean, you're like, okay, it's a big, goofy spectacle. But maybe that's recency bias, but I'll say it anyways. Of the third Pirates of the Caribbean movie here, nearing the second half of the first round here, just taking forever. Funnily enough, but we have All the President's Men. Versus the Mask of Zorro. So 1998 Mask of Zorro versus All the President's Men from 1976. I'll start with Mask of Zorro, which has this sort of, I don't even know what you consider that, sort of a freedom fighter slash, icon within the Spanish oppression in Alta California, a legendary romantic hero of Zorro. This, of course, is. I went with the 1998 one with Antonio Banderas and Anthony Hopkins. I thought it was pretty good overall. I said it was long and okay, not much more, and gave it slapped at 3 stars. 136 minutes is a little ridiculous for this. The sword fighting is kind of fun. And they've got pretty good performances, but I don't think I'll ever want to rewatch at least the 1998 version of The Mask of Zorro. They did, you had The Mark of Zorro from 1940. They had a couple others. You had like The Lone Ranger or something, The Count of Monte Cristo. A couple other ones that they're talking about, similar ones. You get The Legend of Zorro from 2005, where they bring back Antonio Banderas, and Catherine Zeta-Jones again. But this is just something that I thought, I should watch it just for the culture, and then I don't think I will do anything else with it. I think I'll watch it for the culture and not really return to this. But oh my god, in comparison, All the President's Men, ooh. During the 1972 election, 2 reporters, Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman, investigate. Their investigation sheds light on the controversial Watergate scandal that compels President Nixon to resign from his post. Fantastic filmmaking all throughout here. In the rest of my review, I said great cast and compelling performances from Hoffman and Redford. Like how comfortable the film was with shot length, camera movement, push-in, split focus, and cinematography as a whole. I mean, it's really nicely shot, and it's got a great story. And it hinges, I said the film hinges on a compelling story about a conspiracy, but it doesn't chintz on the other aspects. Yeah, a lot of this movie can lend to focusing all on the story or all on the cinematography or all on like the dialogue or anything else, but this is just solid all the way through. This is probably one of the most like recommended like dramas I could provide to someone about like a real world event that I'd seen in Q1 of 2026, and it's 138 minutes, so it's 2 hours 18. Honestly, I could probably take this to be 3 hours. Really funny for the informant's nickname throughout this, or like his alias. Once you get there, you'll get there. But really, really solid in comparison to the Mastosaurus. Mastosaurus is pretty good, but it's a cut and dry here with all the President's Men. And then you have Mystic River and Blue Valentine. Okay, so I'd watched two Blue movies pretty close to each other, with Blue Velvet and Blue Valentine here being on the 28th and the 30th. Mystic River not too far in the past behind that, only on the 16th. Mystic River has the lives of three men who are childhood friends are shattered when one of them suffers a family tragedy. And working through that with compared to Blue Valentine, which is a 2010 romance film between Ryan Gosling and Michelle Williams, as they're sort of going through the parts of divorce in the A story, and then the B story is a flashback of how they met and originally fell in love. Mystic River, I said, so much of this film I felt like we were missing just a bit. Like, we were actually with the detectives and not given enough information, or something just isn't right. So actually, the part where we're missing just a bit kind of felt nice. We're still going through this this mystery. And I said when the credits rolled and the first line was directed by Clint Eastwood, it all fell into place. I went, yep, this. I understand now why this film is like this. This feels very much like a Clint Eastwood film, like a Clint Eastwood directed film. When the credits actually rolled, and then Blue Valentine, I don't recognize anything else from the director. I said it tells an okay story of a failing marriage with good performances by Ryan Gosling and Michelle Williams. I like the changing in filmmaking styles between past and present. And it was my second Ryan Gosling and my second Blue movie that I had within a single week, which is pretty interesting. I think if I had to go back to it, Mystic River might have a slightly better story and experience overall, with especially Lawrence Fishburne and Kevin Bacon, who are sort of tied in there with Tim Robbins and Sean Penn. There's a couple other big names in there, but Blue Valentine I think might be more enjoyable, even though it is a romance. I think sort of it's got interesting concepts of that yin and yang of like just a marriage that's falling apart and a marriage that's just starting. So I think if I had to pick one, I think I would go with Blue Valentine here. I mean, either of these, when you're looking down the barrel with the rest of the bracket, it's a cut and dry case here, right? You have The Equalizer and Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were Rabbit, which are both pretty funny to have next to each other. The Equalizer being a 2014 movie where Denzel Washington is like a quiet spy or agent or whatever, so he knows how to do all the crazy stuff, and then kills the bad guys and wins the day, versus a Wallace and Gromit movie. I think if I had to pick this sort of action slop, um, you know, um, movie with Denzel Washington, I think I gave in my review here. Denzel Washington uses dad skills to kill Russian oligarchs and his goons with stuff from Home Depot, um, versus Wallace and Gromit. Review of a light kids film with some good jokes, simple plot, cartoon ridiculousness, and a banger music from Hans Zimmer. I think I laughed more and had more enjoyment out of Wallace and Gromit, and that sort of structure rather than like, okay, I'm watching an action movie with Denzel Washington, which he plays pretty good. I think he's got good performances in almost everything that I see from him. But it's like, why would I rewatch the Equalizer versus a fun Wallace and Gromit movie, right? Um, so I think that one goes through, of course, right? And you have the Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, which is a pretty unique film. I kind of feel like Anatomy of a Fall, um, which also, I mean, both of these are pretty unique films all the way through. Um, I'll start since it's on top with Anatomy of a Fall. A woman is suspected of her husband's murder, and their blind son faces a moral dilemma as a sole witness. Um, I think I said it was a really interesting concept for a courtroom drama, and that a lot of it we're shown only what other characters are willing to provide, and we're not given sort of like, it's not shown in like a Columbo style movie where you're like, here's the killing, here's how they figure it out. You go, here's how they figure it out, or how they play the courtroom drama. Like, you don't really know going into that courtroom what actually caused everything, and what caused this lady's husband, and or this child's father, to result in their death. It's really interesting. And then you have Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, 2007 Sidney Lumet film, who you might know from 12 Angry Men, or Dog Day Afternoon, or Serpico, or the 1974 Murder on the Orient Express. Um, Pretty influential filmmaker, one of his last ones actually. In my sort by release date, newest first, it actually was his last film before he passed, at least listed on Letterboxd. Two brothers, Philip Seymour Hoffman, organize the robbery of their parents' jewelry store, and the job goes horribly wrong, which triggers a series of events that send them and their family hurtling towards a shattering climax. Um, and I think I said it was probably one of the most uniquely edited films I've seen in a bit. A big cast, some pretty good performances. The cinematography feels drowned out, especially the color grading. Not sure it was correct here. Philip Seymour Hoffman is great as always and really kills the dialogue. And Ethan Hawke is pretty damn good too. Marissa Tomei's a little underused, but I'm grasping at straws for some of that. I think Before the Devil Knows You're Dead is a movie that shouldn't be ignored. I think it's really interesting. It's pretty sad that it's getting lost here in the first round here. I think it could really overtake a lot of some of the other losers. I think it easily blows Spaceballs out of the water. I think it beats over a lot of other things that I've listed here that surprisingly have made it through. So I don't think this should be decredited, but I do think Anatomy of a Fall is a better movie, even though some people hate French language films, which this is for the most part a French language film. So I'll take this in this case. Then you have Contagion, a 2011 Matt Damon and a bunch of other people epidemic movie versus Dodgeball, the movie that I started this year with, or Dodgeball, a True Underdog Story, from 2004. I think for Dodgeball, I said it's a about as 2000 as it gets. Crazy cast, stupid concept, acceptable execution. It's a 2000s comedy film with again a stupid concept with Vince Vaughn, Christine Taylor, Ben Stiller, Justin Long, even Alan Tudyk. You even get a bit of rest in peace Chuck Norris. Supposedly Shatner's in here at some point. I think I'm blanking on where he is, but I think he might be the ref or something. I forget for the most part. Dodgeball, goofy, pretty fun. Probably rewatchable at only 93 minutes. And then you have Contagion, a Steven Soderbergh epidemic movie with just a huge cast, of course. That's kind of what it's mainly known for. Just off the top of the dome piece of the ones that I can read and recognize: Marion Cotillard, Matt Damon, Lawrence Fishburne, Jude Law, Kate Winslet, Gwyneth Paltrow, Bryan Cranston, Elliot Gould. Just a huge cast all the way through. And I think I said it was mainly carried by the cast. You add all of these people, and it gets you somewhere, but you don't have them, you get nowhere. The overall story is nothing crazy. A lot of scenes can be cut because all they do is add subjective views to characters, or you barely see in a very objective movie. Sometimes, yeah, they try to change the edit. It seems to give a little bit more subjectivity. And the cinematography is fine at best. Maybe the camera's locked down a bit more. It could use a bit more handheld. And the music is fine. I think my big gripe with this movie is the fucking font type on the titles. Everyday whatever, I hated. It was awful. It's purely awful. If you've seen this, you know what I'm talking about. It's worse than the shining blue text at the start of the movie. I wanted to scream every time I saw it. So I think if I had to pick one of these, I'd funnily enough pick Dodgeball, especially because Dodgeball's got a lot more influence of Dodger Wrench, Dodger Ball sort of concept, and it's another one of these where you see goddamn Stephen Root and you realize this fucker's in everything. He's in everything, I swear. He's in like 1,000 movies. He's in 128, and I've watched 5 of them. Arguably, I've probably watched closer to 10 with ones that I just haven't logged. But as I was saying, Dodgeball just, that's got to go through for just cultural influence and everything, right? And then you have Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn Part 1, aka the fourth Twilight movie, versus Spider-Man 2. A little bit of a coughing baby versus a sick guy. This is the Doc Ock Spider-Man movie versus the honeymoon and the marriage and honeymoon movie with Twilight. This is probably the shortest review I've given of the Twilight movies. The story is nice and lazy. I said I'll be sad if we have less than 10 minutes of Charlie runtime by the last movie. He's the only thing keeping me afloat, and I was sad by the time we got to the last movie because they did not include him as much as we have had him in the previous ones. This is cut and dry. Doc Ock versus everything that's a mess in the fourth Twilight movie. Spider-Man 2, listen, it's kind of sloppy, but it mainly goes off of the just it's better, and it piggybacks a lot off of the first Spider-Man. So I'll give it its flowers here, I guess. Then you have Past Lives. Are we getting to the bottom of this here? We're at the last those last 4 matchups for round 1, and we're already a little over an hour into this. This is going to be a bitch to edit, but that's okay. um, School of Rock, an early watch for myself this year. I watched it on 11th of January versus Past Lives on the 2nd of March. Past Lives, just gonna blow it the hell out of the water. School of Rock, I said the 2000 Kids movie with Jack Black being eccentric, not much else for me, and slapped a 3 stars on it after finishing 110 minutes and said it's done. I'm not a huge fan of Jack Black. This is a kids movie. It's for kids, with kids, by kids. Um, I understand a lot of people could have a connection to this themselves, especially with Jack Black and Joanne Cusack as the principal within the film. But compared to all of the cinematography, storytelling, good use of reflections, music, themes, everything within Past Lives. I mean, Past Lives, I gave it a 4.5. This is just solid all the way through. Not to mention Greta Lee, just great within this, just absolutely wonderful. Did she get nomination for a Golden Globe Award for Best Actress? Did she get nominated for? Let me see. Past Lives. Did she get nominated for Best Actress within this? Because she is pretty damn good, and I mean, so is Teo Yu. The male lead within that. Let me see accolades. It just won it just got nominated for Best Picture and Best Original Screenplay. Both pretty good. Which is funny with Celine's Song being her debut movie. Is pretty funny versus Richard Linklater, who's done 33 films. Might as well be 1,000. And it seems like some of these are just gonna end up not being for me if I end up getting to them. But for a little bit of a synopsis, Past Lives. After decades apart, childhood friends Nora and Hae Sung are reunited in New York for one fateful weekend as they confront notions of destiny, love, and the choices that make of life. So sort of that concept of being able to recover a lost love kind of concepts, or reconnect with what was previously perceived to be a lost love, versus a movie where Jack Black is out of a job, so he decides to be a substitute teacher at a private school and just teach them to rock out. Not my cup of tea. I think anybody who knows me knows that that's not going to be my cup of tea. It's pretty fun, but there's no way it competes, right? So gotta pick that. Or Sell the Shell with Shoes On versus Spider-Man 3, which is pretty damn funny. I think Spider-Man 2 and 3 got through here when technically I've already watched them. I think I try to keep up my rewatches, but I think these slip through the cracks within my letterbox. These should be. I'll edit the reviews now. I'm gonna rewrite the history books and change these to I've watched these already. I think as much as I can actually say about Spider-Man 3 is literally just the line from Tobey Maguire where he goes, "Now dig on this. Now dig on this." It's just stupid. It's a ridiculous movie. There's way too much happening with all the characters. If you haven't seen it, you should go watch the CinemaSticks video on that he did where he tried to edit it as a Twilight Zone movie, which was pretty fun actually. And it cuts out a lot of the weird plot because it realistically you could kind of do a lot with Sandman's story, but we were just forced to follow all of Tobey Maguire's um, in his Venom plot and becoming a piece of shit. Um, so it's okay. But again, it's going to be just blown out of the water by Marcel the Shells with Shoes On. I mean, this is a 2021 film, and I feel like a lot of people might not recognize this. Because it's a goofy fucking name and it looks weird when you first look at it. You're like, what the fuck am I watching? Why? Why should I watch this? It looks ridiculous. I don't understand this. Why did it win? Or sorry, why was it nominated for an Academy Award for best animated feature film? But this is fantastic. It's a mockumentary style. Um, I think it's said. I think it's probably the first, and I think it's at least within quarter one. I think, just judging on the rest that I've watched here, it's the only film that made me openly cry, and for much longer than I thought it would. Um, it's very easy to digest, but it takes you through a range of very complex emotions, and the music is very fitting throughout. The dialogue and voice acting is great. I think if you go into this with an open mind, you can really, really enjoy this. I gave it an amazing 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I was legitimately thinking about whether or not this should be a 5. I don't know if there's much more that you can do to this to 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 improve on it. I think it's next to perfect with everything that they did with this. Whatever meta components are just meta enough. They don't lean into it too much, and I think it's really really solid. So that's just a easily demolish with Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. Um, then you have Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, which is the fourth one, and 28 years later, which is the third. 28 years, or 28 blanks later. Um, on Stranger Tides should not have been made. It's the Ian McShane one where they're looking for the Fountain of Youth. This is just fucking sloppy. It just keeps going. Like, it's just a body it's getting moved by just being electrocuted, and whatever energy is already existing within that is flopping into the finish line. It's just a sloppy piece of shit. They couldn't even get Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley back for this, so they had to write in this whole Penelope Cruz and Ian McShane daughter and father plot, and it's just a freaking mess. It's a freaking mess. It should not have been made. Versus 20 years later, Danny Boyle is back, and he's doing some interesting shit. I think all the performances are pretty good. I think I said it's the most unique film that I've seen since 28 Days Later. Ironically, music was interesting. Concepts were easy to grasp and intriguing. Story's nothing crazy, but is made up for with bringing Danny Boyle back to do something new again. The thing felt quite artsy, especially with cinematography choices. My probably only and biggest gripe is the use of Dutch angles. When used well, these can be excellent storytelling techniques. Unfortunately, they're plastered front to back here, so they lose effectiveness. I think that holds. I think Dutch angles sometimes it's like when anything is just even slightly wrong, they just go put it on a Dutch angle and it'll work, and you're like, yeah, but you should use them more sparingly so they really pack a punch. But maybe I'm getting nitpicky on some of the shot compositions more than anything else. But I think overall, really interesting. I liked what they did with the boots sort of scene, and I think it had an interesting ending and an interesting lead off. But you were kind of ham-fisting yourself into the next movie with what you're going to have to do with the plot. So I don't think this is the fourth Parts of the Caribbean slop shit is going to end up being 28 years later. So I'm gonna pick that one. And for the final, within the first round, good jeepers here. We've got Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, and Dirty Harry. Dirty Harry, the 1971 Clint Eastwood film, and the Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, the final Pirates of the Caribbean so far from 2017. This one's going to be nice and easy to finish. This round one off. I'll start with Pirates of the Caribbean since it's first. Here's my review. What a movie. Stop making these and let the series die an awful death here. The plot is next to pure garbage, the music is uninventive, it's just a boring Disney slapfest for way too long. Please no more, I can't do it. That's how I felt by the time I finished the Pirates of the Caribbean series. This should not have been made. It's a mistake. I think the fourth one was a mistake. This one's undoubtedly a mistake. Just a sloppy mess all the way through. It sucks that you end up forcing Javier Bardem to have to be within this one. He's done so many better performances in so many other movies. I mean, Dune 2, No Country for Old Men. I heard he was pretty good in F1. He was pretty good in Skyfall. So sucks that he's in this. This is a piece of shit. Don't watch this if you don't have to, or you're not doing the full series. Even if you're doing the full series, honestly, just watch 1, 2, and 3. If you want to do it, don't go further. There's no point. And Dirty Harry, Clint Eastwood is a kind of dirty, or like a take no prisoners cop, and I think all I gave it was some interesting shots, music, dialogue, and acting from Clint Eastwood. It's kind of a nothing burger of a movie nowadays. You get just a lot out of Clint Eastwood, and he gives the majority of the performances, and the rest is sort of okay, and that's about it. So I'll make it nice and easy and just say Dirty Harry, and we'll move on to this sort of second round here. We might have to. We're gonna have quite a few here to go all the way through, but you have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre versus Every Living Breathing Moment. I already talked about all these, so again, maybe go back and if you want to get more of a concept of many of these second round here, but I'm going to try and clean this up before it gets way too dirty. Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Every Living Breathing Moment. I think Every Living Breathing Moment is good, but I think I can agree that Texas Chainsaw Massacre is better overall, and probably something I'd be more willing to rewatch, especially for the culture. But this is still a pretty good short film with some very fun music if you get the chance to watch. I think it's like 20 minutes, so it's a YouTube. It's a YouTube video. I think it actually is itself a YouTube video. Every Living Breathing Moment. Yeah, and by Angelo Visser. It comes in at 19 minutes, so I mean you can watch it right now instead of watching the rest of this video if you really feel like it. Then we have Snowpiercer versus The Platform. So a couple of these are these guys are gonna have a weird. This one's gonna have a buy round going in, and then these guys are gonna have to go through. But Snowpiercer versus the platform. I think this one's gotten dry. I think it's Snowpiercer. I think it's more solid all the way through. Better performances, more enjoyable of a concept. These are both really unique concepts, but I think I will give it to Snowpiercer. This is Spinal Tap versus Project Hail Mary. This is Spinal Tap is pretty good, but mockumentary is not my style, and Project Hail Mary is just really solid all the way around. So, cut and dry. Oh, I can't wait for this thing to get blown out of the water. Twilight, of course, huge culture, but it's a fucking laughable, goofy fucking movie. Not to mention, I'd even mention in New Moon when they do the spin around the chair shot. Oh my fucking god. Obviously, insane cultural impact, but The Holdovers is just it's a better movie. So you got to pick that, obviously. You get the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie versus the third Avatar. I think this one's also gotten dry. It's the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Incredibly influential, amazing soundtrack, big cast all the way through, quite fun. And Avatar Fire and Ash, while it is this crazy spectacle, it's kind of a piece of shit. Besides the fact that it's an Avatar movie, it's you go to an Avatar movie like you're going to a John Wick movie, like you're kind of getting the same thing every time, just with a an updated visual representation. Like you're getting this new HD, like holy shit, it looks fucking amazing. But you're like, the story is just fucking pieced together with bubble gum and paper clips in order to make everything work fine. But still would give the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie there. The first Mission Impossible versus adaptation. Mission Impossible's pretty good. Obviously, a crazy soundtrack. I don't remember if I mentioned that. But I think adaptation might go a little long with some of the, down in the bayou concept with that one character. So I may be going back on it a bit, but I think it is pretty damn good. Overall, I think I'll give it to adaptation here if I really have to choose. And you have Long Walk versus Ip Man. Long Walk, pretty interesting concept, but Ip Man I think blows it out of the water with its quality and its fighting, and its fun story and Donnie Yen's performance and everything. So I think that one's cut and dry. Spaceballs, a Star Wars parody versus a really interesting Mads Mikkelsen movie. I mean, that's a nice and easy decision. Pirates of the Caribbean versus the second Pirates of the Caribbean versus Raiders of the Lost Ark. Gotta give that to Raiders. It's the first Indiana Jones movie, and Spielberg is just fucking fantastic here. Really, really good. If you haven't seen it, I think it might be Cinema Sticks who also did a Raiders of the Lost Ark movie, yes, where he talks about how Raiders of the Lost Ark also, he talks about the Steven Soderbergh cut, where Steven Soderbergh cuts out the audio and turns it all black and white, just to and have it as like this silent film, and he puts over some music, I think, from The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and The Social Network, some Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, I believe, from Nine Inch Nails, to really represent how good Spielberg is at his job, and he's damn good. He's damn good. So give that video a chance if you haven't seen it. I should watch the Soderbergh cut at a certain point, but going back to that, I mean, he's great. He's great all the way through. And we have All the President's Men versus Blue Valentine. All the President's Men, really, really solid. Blue Valentine, pretty good. Romance drama, but I think it gets blown out of the water by All the President's Men when you actually put them head to head here. So I'll select that one. Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were Rabbit versus Anatomy of a Fall. Wallace and Gromit, kind of an easy win on the second one, but it sort of falls apart here when it gets to Anatomy of a Fall. It's a good kids movie, but I think you really got to be in the mood for that sort of childhood mimsy with it. I don't think I could come back to a Wallace and Gromit movie very often, but it is quite fun. But Anatomy of a Fall, really good performances all the way through, really good concepts. I enjoy the cinematography and everything within it. Good drama overall. So I think I gotta pick Anatomy of a Fall here. Then we have Dodgeball versus Spider-Man 2. I think Spider-Man 2 might be a little too goofy for my taking, so I think I would go Dodgeball if I really got to pick through here. We have Past Lives versus Marcel the Shell of Shoes on two heavy hitters here. Sucks that they're gonna go in there in the second round here. I mean, either of these could just fucking demolish Dodgeball or Spider-Man 2, so it sucks to end up having to make these decisions, but I think if I had to put them head to head, Past Lives, like, really good, really good. But I think Marcel the Shell with Shoes on is just fuck, something that is that influential and actually made me consider giving my first 5 stars for this year, and it legitimately made me cry all the way through it, like through like a significant portion, not all the way through it, but like through some heavy portions. I think I gotta give its credit here. 28 Years Later, which I thought was really artsy, really creative for a lot of parts of it, pretty fun. I think just demolishes Dirty Harry. Dirty Harry is pretty fun, but and pretty interesting, but I don't think it stands a chance here for my personal choice. Now we're gonna kick back to the start of the bracket here. Moving round 3 into round 4 here, we're gonna pick our top 8, I believe. Yeah, we're gonna pick our top 8 here. So we got top 16, with of course Snowpiercer making it through. So you've got The Irishman and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think The Irishman might be a little long and might not be very rewatchable compared to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre does kind of hold on to fucking nothing for a little bit. But it is really influential. I think I would end up having to give this. It could go either way for me, I think. I think it could go either way. I think I enjoyed The Irishman more, especially seeing everyone having De Niro and Pacino have a very close interaction between each other, which surprisingly you don't actually see very often. They're in movies together, but very rarely do you see this like very close interaction between the two of them, and it's just pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. So I think I do have to give it to The Irishman here, to face up against Snowpiercer in the end. Project Hail Mary and The Holdovers. Sucks to see one of these go because they're both fantastic. And I do think I gotta give The Holdovers their flowers because it's a really good story. It's got surprisingly good cinematography and like set design, production, and everything. And performances are of course great from your big three, but I do think Project Hail Mary, maybe it might be recency bias, I will give it that, but it is really solid. It is really solid. So I think I would give it to Project Hail Mary here. You got the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie versus adaptation. Pirates of the Caribbean, it's surprising that it made it all the way to round 3, but I don't think it's going to make it to round 4. I do think adaptation is kind of a better movie overall. much more of an adult movie than Pirates of the Caribbean, with all of its children's style aspects to it, whether it was intentional or not. But um, gotta give it the adaptation here. Then you have Ip Man versus Another Round. I think Ip Man is a pretty good action movie, and I'm glad it made it this far for how good it is. But I do think Another Round, Mads Mikkelsen is just really good in that. I enjoyed cinematography, enjoyed concepts, and everything that's got attached to it. Especially the performances, I think are all really solid. So I think I do got to give it to Another Round here, or Druk by its name. You have Raider by its Dutch name, not Dutch name, it's Danish name. Um, you have Raiders of the Lost Ark and All the President's Men. Um, I think Raiders is really good, and I'm glad I made it this far. But I do feel like I'm kind of cheating it with it being a bit of a rewatch. I haven't seen it for a while, but it is technically a rewatch. And All the President's Men is really solid. I think it's one that I should probably revisit sometime again this year with how good it felt. I mean, Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman are both really good, and everyone else within there is nice. And the split diopter shots and all these long shots, and everything feels really, really solid in All the President's Men. So I think I gotta let it through. I think I gotta let it through. So it sucks to see Raiders go, of course, but when you're having the bracket, one of them's gotta get to the end, right? Then you have Anatomy of a Fall and a True and Dodgeball. Gotta give it to Anatomy of a Fall here. I think this one's a quick, easy choice. Just rip off the band-aid. Dodgeball's quite fun, but it's a 2000s comedy, and I think a lot of it is not exactly for me. But I can understand its quality and everything here. But Anatomy of a Fall, I think it's really solid, really solid. Marcel the Shell with Shoes On and 20 Years Later. Um, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, I think, is just really, really good here. Um, 28 Years Later is pretty good and it's artsy, but it does piggyback, of course, off of a lot of the work that already exists. But it does have some interesting concepts going through it, but I don't know if I could tank the artsiness more than a couple times. And Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. It's great. It's great. If I haven't convinced you yet, you should watch it instead of watching the rest of this video here. We got our top 8. First round, first set, The Irishman versus Snowpiercer. I think Snowpiercer is probably a better movie because I think Scorsese is really good here in The Irishman. I think he's about as good as the rest of his gangster style movies, but I think it does just go on a little long, and it's hard for me to argue for The Irishman versus anything else that Scorsese's done that's in this branch. Like I think it's hard for me to recommend The Irishman versus just saying go watch Goodfellas or Casino or even The Departed. Honestly, I think The Wolf of Wall Street goes without saying, but I think Scorsese just has. Honestly, I think he's got better films than this going through, and I think Snowpiercer lends more of an interesting concept. And I think it would probably be more rewatchable and more of a enjoyable movie for me. In terms of enjoyment per minute. If I had to pick one or the other, so I'd probably go Snowpiercer here. New Project Hail Mary versus adaptation. A meta Nicolas Cage movie, I think, can only get you so far here with adaptation, compared to a really fun Ryan Gosling movie from within the past 3 months that I'll have incredible influence on, especially because I watched it in IMAX. So I think Project Hail Mary kind of blows adaptation out of the water by the time it gets this far within the bracket, of course. I think you have Another Round versus All the President's Men. Another Round, pretty solid, but I do think its cinematography is maybe a little bland at times. in comparison. I think it's really carried by its story and performances. I don't exactly remember the music, and I think All the President's Men is just so cleanly put together that I'm almost a little surprised I gave it 4 out of 5 originally. I think this has a lot of potential to end up becoming a 4.5 out of 5 on a rewatch, or maybe should have been a 4.5 out of 5 to begin with. Really, really good, and especially because you can tie it to a true story, and an actual book that it's basing everything off of, versus I think what is probably more of an abstract concept. Don't know if Another Round is really based on some Danish alcoholics or not, but I, I'll give it its credit. But All the President's Men, just it's great. It's really, really good. Um, they have Anatomy of a Fall and Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. Anatomy of a Fall, really good, but I don't think it's as good as Marcel the Shell with Shoes On by the time it gets this far in the bracket, right? This is just, it's really, really good filmmaking. It really eases you into a really weird concept and then plays with your emotions very, very well. And the guy is so damn cute. And Anatomy of a Fall has really good performances. It really has a lot going for it, and I don't think it should be discredited by the fact that it's getting knocked out here in top 8. I'm glad it made it this far, but I don't think it's going anywhere further than this. Then you have Snowpiercer, funnily enough, making it into top 4. Did not think it would make it into semifinals if you had me originally mention this. I mean, maybe it's a bit of a rigged bracket going through here with some of the ones that have fought. I think Snowpiercer would have had the potential to lose to the Holdovers, or potentially even Ip Man. I think it would lose to Raiders of the Lost Ark. So potentially a rigged bracket, which some people in the comments will say is definitely the case. But I do think Project Hail Mary is better. I think it's more enjoyable all the way around. I think if I had to go back and rewatch one of these today, even after just recently watching Project Hail Mary, and I normally don't like to do like a rewatch within a short period, I do think Project Hail Mary is just better overall. It's better for audience of almost all ages. It's got interesting concepts, can almost made me tear up at a couple points, versus Snowpiercer, which is just a really interesting concepts and some good performances and some good cinematography and shots and everything going through a certain point. So I don't think it should be discredited. I think it's quite fun, but I do got to give it to Project Hail Mary. Given the choice here. And then meeting Project Hail Mary in our final finale, we have All the President's Men versus Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, which at this point I have to go back and look at my reviews for these two, because good God, let me see here. He's very, very good, all the way front to back in Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. But I think, like, if I'm comparing the two, I think they realistically probably should both be a 4.5 out of 5. But I'm looking at my other 5s and everything else, and I think, I think I could go either way on this for a lot of different days, but I think I've got to give it to All the President's Men. I think that is just, I understand it's a lot more of an adult movie, and it's kind of a bit of a boy movie with a lot of its concepts and its where it's trying to go and everything, and with how much of a mystery drama sort of concept that it's going through. But I think Redford and Hoffman are so good in this. They're so good in this that I almost want to rewatch this. Funnily enough, and I might rewatch this on like on Wednesday or something here. We'll see on the next upcoming Wednesday or sometime that I got some time. So I think I do got to give it to All the President's Men. By the time I get through here, then we have our finale. We've got our final, the big two: Project Hail Mary and All the President's Men. Um, I mean, these are both heavy hitters. I think I do have to give it to Project Hail Mary though, because even though All the President's Men was amazing and it carried itself all the way through this bracket, and I watched it as my second watch um, this year. I watched it over 3 months ago, so it's just some basic concepts and framing in my mind, but it was so damn good when I watched it. Like I was on the edge of my seat by the time I'm getting to the end of it, and some of the shots and everything is great. But I think Project Hail Mary is so fun while also still being good emotionally, and good pacing and good performances and some fun music that I will probably recognize more if I ever rewatch it. So I think it's damn close. But I think I do have to give it to Project Hail Mary by the time I end up picking this. Um, so it's a little bit of a shame that All the President's Men couldn't take it, but I think I am happy with how the bracket turned out. Some really interesting matchups with a lot of these, especially with how many of these, like Snowpiercer and the Platform, are two like really unique concepts. And then you have something like where do we see something? There was something back here that I went, wow, that's a crazy matchup. Um, it was here somewhere. I can just cut all this. Hmm. Oh yeah, like the two Twilight movies way up here together, and everything. Like, really interesting bracket. I'm glad I ended up going with something like this. Um, Let me know how you guys feel about it. By the time I edit this, this might come down to probably at least an hour and a half. I mean, this is half a podcast by the time I'm done this, but really interesting concept. Got to give the flowers where the flowers are due for these two finalists by the time we get through here. So yeah, that's my recommendation. If you haven't seen it, these are my top two. Watch Project Hail Mary and watch All the President's Men. If I'm giving my one big recommendation for 2026 quarter one, and my big runner up, it's got to be these two. It's got to be these two. If you haven't seen these, go watch them now. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. This probably went way too long. I probably rambled way too much. Probably could have cleaned this up a bit, but hope you enjoyed. And I hope I'll see you with this maybe again for quarter two. See you later.